Hello. I was asked to give a short intro why the city of Tartu started with the Metallica project at the first place. So let's go back about a year and a half into the summer 2018. It was then when we heard the news, like in the city, and then we decided we decided two things, and the third came along the process. So the first thing we decided was that we will do our best in the city, with the transportation, logistics, everything, to sort everything out during the concert in a way that at first we will prove that Tartu is ready for the events like this, and also to keep the people happy, to keep the organizers happy, to keep the visitors happy, and to keep the citizens happy as well. Most of you, I think, how that turned out pretty well, I think. So the second thing we decided was to prove with data the same thing, that Tartu will survive. And this is the part that you will hear today. And the third thing was to work out the model, how to find out how an event like Metallica impacts a city. And this is an ongoing process. Pia later will talk a little bit about that, but we are in the middle, so that's not ready yet. But to start from the very beginning, I would like to invite to the stage Eva Palm from Live Nation. So she will talk about how Metallica ended up in here. Please give applause to Eva.
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
Hi, I'm Eva Palm, head promoter Live Nation Estonia and Baltics. And this was our very impressive ad and a little bit of the presentation to Metallica management about Tartu and why we want to do Tartu and what is the Radi airfield. Basically, every time I see this ad, I get really excited. And that was actually the reason also why we suddenly started to believe in Metallica, in Tartu, doing it at Radi airfield. And to start with, I need to point out one thing. We are still considered to be a very remote corner of the world. It's very difficult to get shows here, especially outdoor shows, and they don't really want to come here. It's really far away. It's huge cost for them. The money is always short. So there is like a lot of different reasons, and so that's why every outdoor act that we get here is a really huge victory for us. So my first record of Metallica was from March 1st, 2017, when I heard and approached the Metallica management and agent that I heard that they're going to come on tour, they're going to do indoor run, and I basically asked if we can participate in it. And of course, the answer was, as always, that no, you're not going to be in this run. Time is too short. You're going to be at 2019. Okay, so I completely forgot about it. That's it. It's always the case. So also, I need to point out one thing. We have promoted Metallica several times. And the biggest show ever happened with a foreign act was Metallica 2006 at Tallinn Song Festival ground, where we sold 73,000 tickets. This was the biggest show in history of the Baltics. It was totally sold out. Every baby, every grandma, every grandfather was there to listen Metallica, and it was just absolutely like we couldn't believe it. You know, it's happening. So at that time, I was actually working for the company as a production manager. So I was the only female production manager in the Baltics, and this Metallica was my first outdoor show as a production manager, so this was insane. Anyway, 2006 was a major success. So then we promoted Metallica 2008 in Riga at the outdoor stadium. Then we promoted them 2010. So they've been here several times. Every time you bring the act back, it's more risky because you never know. Usually our people think that, oh, I've seen this, you know, I don't want to, I've already, you know, I don't know, I've seen this already 3 times, so what can be there, you know? So anyway, it's a huge risk. So then we thought that, okay, we need to find another location. There needs to be a venue somewhere in Estonia where we can do it. So we found this Tartu Raadi airfield, and we were really happy. But basically, after this March 1st, 2017, we were approached again in February 1st, 2018. And at that time, we were already in the routing. So I couldn't believe my eyes. I was already in the routing. I didn't even send them the budget. I didn't even send them the offer, and I was there. So it rarely happens. And I didn't even know that if I want to do the show, because it's really risky, and we didn't really have a plan. So after that, we started to look for another venue, which we found in Tartu. So we made a huge presentation. The drones were flying. You know, we were filming. We hired a design company to do the presentation. They were really pissed off that they couldn't play at Song Festival ground in Tallinn. But we said that we made them a huge list of the reasons why we need to go somewhere else in order to have a success. So we did the presentation, we sent it over, they were really impressed. March 2018 production team came over to see Tartu. They were really impressed. They said, oh, we can put 100,000 people here. I said, oh, wow, hold on. We're not going to put 100,000. Let's start with 45,000. So they thought that I'm really pessimistic. And at that time, I was really pessimistic. But we were given the green light in May 11th, 2018. And basically, we announced the show in September 2018. So it was almost, a little bit less than a year to sell. So the first moment the show went on sale, we saw that this is going to be huge. So I approached the management several times that let's go from 45,000 to 50, let's go from 50 to 55, let's go from 55 to 60. So, and then I had to say, okay, that's it. You know, we were sold out 60,000 tickets beginning of July, and basically we made the right decision. So it was really a good thing to us that it happened. And when the city approached us, that they want to measure the data, everything, measure the statistics, and how the concert on this level impacts city life, we were even more in. So this is the first time we actually can see how our concert, the big outdoor show, impacts the city economical life, cultural life, you know, and the city supported us in a way that we even couldn't imagine. So we were so welcome, and you know, every time we have a possibility to come back to Tartu with our big shows, we'll do that. Because it's, I haven't seen actually the data yet. I'm gonna see it now, so I'm really excited. But the way that we took Metallica here, so I got a really nice letter from the management and from the band later, and they were so impressed how the city welcomed them, and how, you know, we did all this major, huge, like impressive production. There were, you know, hundreds of toilets, you know, 8 kilometers of fence, you know. It was like over 1,000 people working there. So it was a major, major event for us as well. And it got me excited again because, you know, I'm usually, you do this and you rarely get something that really, you know, excites you as much as this did, because when we visualized the presentation, then it became clear that it's going to be a huge thing, you know. And so thank you, Tartu, trusting us and giving us the opportunity, and we'll see what the statistics will be. Thank you.
Modeling Metallica. On September 24, 2018, the big news arrived just before lunch. The biggest name in rock music, Metallica, was coming to our town, Tartu, and social media was instantly set on fire. Interestingly, while Twitter had the most individual posts, it was Facebook that had the furthest reach. When the official Metallica account tweeted as the band took the stage, it reached an estimated 5.7 million people. However, that same message, when posted to Facebook, was seen by 36 million. Just how was Tartu, a city with little under 100,000 residents, going to cope? One day after the gig was made public, every single hotel, hostel, guest house, and bed in town had been fully booked, a solid 9 months until the band would touch down. Another 3 days later, all the VIP and special fan zone tickets had been sold. The hype showed no sign of letting up, and by March, 50,000 tickets had been sold, prompting the promoters to add another 10,000 tickets just days before the event. Oh yes, this was going to be big. It's not difficult to imagine the challenges that 60,000 guests would present to the city of Tartu. One small group within the city government decided to take the advantage of this unique opportunity. Having a legendary rock band visit Tartu is kind of rare, but not necessarily a once-off. They looked for new ways of analyzing how their city transformed under the pressure and how to do an even better job in the future. Thankfully, this was not the city's first foray into data gathering. Just a few years ago, the Tartu Smart City project was founded, and one of the activities was to place sensors all around the town, scanning for changes in the air, reporting noise levels, measuring energy efficiency, and monitoring traffic, all aimed at securing a sustainable, smart urban environment. The tools they needed were already positioned around the city, hiding in plain sight. In 2019, Tartu released more than 500 electric bikes into the city for everyone to use. The bike share effort became an overnight hit, and the bikes themselves became another sensor to analyze traffic flow. These hundreds of bikes allowed for a detailed view of which routes and streets were taken when cars were not an option. However, the data didn't just come from the city's resources. Dozens of private companies responded to the city government's appeal to provide data to create this detailed model. On July 18, 2019, 9:04 a.m., our cameras were monitoring movements on the road leading into the city. They had been drawing their familiar graphs since the early hours, welcoming drivers living in surrounding areas on their way to work. By noon, 60 vehicles were seen going past every quarter hour. Then it was 65, 85, 97, then 100, and we knew something big was happening. Shortly after lunch, a few thousand ticket holders from Latvia and Lithuania were spotted, and soon after that, we saw 1,000 fans from Russia that we witnessed as data points on the Narva Road. Ticket sale data had shown us that fans were coming from over 50 countries, but there's only one scheduled flight between Tartu and the outside world, a midnight arrival from Helsinki. Now, we did see an increase in charter flights, a 10-fold increase in fact. Now, this sounds impressive until you know that last year, charter flights brought in a grand total of 3 passengers to Tartu. From that, we surmised that the vast majority of fans were landing at the larger Tallinn airport. Flight data from the day was broad, as we didn't set out to track individuals. However, we were able to identify 4 very special guests arriving on a 4:30 p.m. charter flight from Copenhagen. The gigabytes of data files acted as our eyes and ears in the outer city intersections, but as soon as the cars had passed our cameras, they were lost to us. There were no sensors embedded in the narrow inner city streets. However, relying on a combination of dozens of other data sources and finding connections and anomalies inside of that data, we were able to continue the journey. Whereas most accommodation providers found themselves happy to increase prices by about 10 to 30% for the night, there were those who felt confident enough to ask prices twice the usual rate, at times 250 to 400 euros. Airbnb had the largest price range, going from about 50 euros all the way up well into 4 figures. The town's 50-plus hostels, hotels, and inns were the first choice for early bookers, and their combined 3,000 beds got sold out back in September. However, through cancellations and additional offers that popped up, Tartu never really got full. While Airbnb listings made a grand record of 615 homes ready to open their doors, on the day of the gig, 108 of those were still available. A week before the concert, an estimated 75% of available properties had been booked. Airbnb gave us excellent data. It was clear that their clients were looking for independence. Over 95% of them opt to book an entire place of their own in July, leaving 4.7% in private rooms. Finally, a grand total of 3 people were content to just share a room. Neighboring languages were spoken the most, almost silencing English. Data collected lets us estimate that about 75% of visitors originated from just across our closest borders, meaning Helsinki, Riga, St. Petersburg, and Moscow. Data from bank card payments indicates there was a 36% increase in revenue from restaurants during those days. In total, Tartu saw a 13.8% revenue hike from the event, clocking in at a whopping 3.5 million euros. Tartu has been aiming to become the first CO2 neutral municipality in the Baltic states, and since the summer of 2019, all Tartu buses operate on compressed natural gas. The goal is to reduce private car use down to 20% of all travel by the year 2040. Anticipating the crowds, the smart city had played it smart. Routes leaving every 30 minutes encouraged visitors to opt for one of the 64 bright red buses fueled by the less polluting CNG. However, not everybody did that, and soon we saw bus schedules running behind, caused by congestion clogging the streets. With NO2 levels rising throughout the day, the long-term thinking of the Tartu Smart Bike Share system shone through. With the first 20 weeks of the bike share system had been a complete success, with more than 20,000 registered users and over 447,000 rides had been made, with a total mileage of 1.3 million kilometers. Today, as cars were busy filling the streets, the bikes took an effortless combined trip of over 16,000 kilometers. That's 2,000 more kilometers than just a week earlier. The hundreds and thousands of pings coming from bikes being pedaled across the town translated into a steady stream of dots on the map. This showed they came together to take largely similar routes towards the Estonian National Museum. Just as a cell tower on the bank of the river logged the passing of 3,200 users over the afternoon, another one, a few blocks down, began to pick them up. 2 hours later, we saw a third one take the heat and clocked in at 6,500 guests, pushing the technology to its limits. Despite the best efforts of our telcos, the jam of guests at the front gate around 8 p.m. still left a gridlock on the network. With most guests opting for an online QR code instead of a printed ticket, we hoped that they had the foresight to download this from the cloud before they got to the front gate. As the opening band Ecstasy of Gold rocked out to open the event, another member of the audience was checking out the area just as intently. a satellite with coordinates locked onto the airfield had been tasked with the special mission of measuring terrain displacement. It had already determined an 11mm sink where the tons of sound and stage equipment were sitting. This movement is normal and expected, and we are happy to say that the Estonian National Museum is still firmly in place. As the event came to a close, our cameras on the ring road picked up the spike of guests who had decided to not stay the night. However, other sensors were also catching our attention, namely the city center cell towers. They were recording close to 1,600 pings. And while this number isn't outrageous, this is a number you expect at 12 midday, not hours after midnight. It was well after dawn that the numbers started to drop, and this must have been one hell of a party. The celebrations had taken to the streets, parks, and the riverside. Local law enforcement, backed by several security companies and town officials, were watching over the cheerful crowds. As the morning dawned and the reports were filed, it became clear that it was the crowds themselves that had kept the party safe. Apart from a few drunk guys and impatient drivers, the date will be remembered as one of the least eventful on record. When we set out to process the gigabytes of files, we were expecting to see a town on its final stretch, struggling to maintain the lifestyle for locals and accommodate faraway guests. The reality was actually quite the opposite. We were pleasantly surprised to discover that despite having faced the most challenging event Tartu has ever hosted, the only truly out of the ordinary thing was that the biggest rock band in the world had visited Tartu, and indeed nothing was out of the ordinary. Thinking ahead and being smart had kept the city intact after a 65% hike in population over 24 hours, prompting the question, how big can we do this without breaking the city? The data gathered during the days Metallica visited Tartu is still flowing in and is still being analyzed further, and this might be the fuel to power the time machine that can provide that answer.
Yes, what a video! Yes! Oh, it's a great video. One of the best. Great video. Cheap voiceover, but great video. We got to talk to Fiverr, get some better freelancers in. Very nice. And no, I didn't take a breath when I read that thing. It was fun, and I got to work with the team making that video, editing that script, and it was a very interesting process to learn. I mean, there's so much more that was in that video to learn about what Tartu did. It's an absolutely fascinating subject, and we're going to have a panel session right now to give you and tell you more about that exact topic. So to introduce our panel and to talk us through the next speakers and the whole next section, I would like to introduce to the stage the head of the Data Science Department and the Institute of Computer Science at the University of Tartu. Please have a warm round of applause, Mr. Jaak Vilo.
Thank you, and please let me welcome all the data scientists on board. I hope that this is going to be a great advertisement to our data science master's curriculum, going to be taught at the Delta building right next in here. And how often do our data geeks get the main floor? We have as you saw from the video, the city probably was worried about how the tiny town can handle those masses of people. And that's why we have 2%, well, mostly people talking about movement, counting cars, etc. First, please welcome on board on the stage from Fujitsu, Marek Sok, please.
So, hello everyone. My name is Marek Sok. I'm the head of the software development department. And if you don't know Fujitsu, then I'll briefly introduce. So Fujitsu is actually one of the world's largest IT services company, and actually also one of the largest IT services company in Estonia. So we have working 400 people here, and actually 100 of them working here in Tartu. So our task in this particular project, was to measure or help to measure impact for the traffic based on the video feeds. So to do that, there was in total 15 temporary cameras installed, which out video feed from 12 cameras was used in total amount of 500 hours. And our task was to identify the different object types and to register their movement, coordinates, and timestamp. So basically there was pedestrians, bicycles, bikes, cars, buses, trucks. The data amount actually was quite huge. So we do not even speak gigabyte, but actually it was over terabytes. Now, of course, during that task, our AI specialist had, let's say, several challenges. Nothing is ever easy. So, like some cameras had a different angle, like vertical. So basically, you had to identify the object basically from up to down. So basically, we had to train our algorithm to identify objects in this way. Then another example was that if the camera had to identify objects behind each other. So basically, again, you have to make sure that it's not the same object that is just appearing again and again. So we had to identify and to make sure it's the same one. And yeah, like also other conditions, like the night or evening conditions, etc., etc. But all in all, actually, it went quite well. In total, we were able to identify over 1.7 million unique events. So different objects together with the movements. And of course, when we compared, or when the data was compared with this reference time period 1 week later, then basically roughly we could say that the overall traffic increase was roughly about 50%. The data, about data accuracy, we achieved, let's say, around 90%, which in current case is good enough to do the statistical analysis. And here is also very short snapshot about how the data was registered. So basically, in the end, we generated one big database where all these different kinds of events were registered. And together with, actually later on, when we registered the objects together with the coordinates, we also decide that we can identify also the direction of movement. So we basically specified for each camera by 1 to 3, let's say, 3 different direction, and basically for each object we also specified this movement direction. For us, the project was actually a very good example how to have this kind of agile, fast project, because the whole process for us was actually quite quick. I think we started the discussion with Tartu City at springtime, so there was just a couple of months to basically like co-create or co-think together what data could be extracted from the video feeds, and also what is the data, metadata that is valuable and what we should get out. Then we got the videos after the event, and already a couple of months later, during autumn, we were able to basically get all the extracted metadata back. And just to show you up that it's just one example how this, let's say, video-based AI can be used, and hopefully also you can get some additional ideas either to generate like new services or to add additional value to your existing ones. So based on video feed and AI, you can of course do the traffic analysis either to detect parking or like we did identifying the objects, but you can also help retail stores to either deal with theft in automatic caches or some kind of just checking up the environment metrics. So, but thank you for that.
Thank you. You can expect that from global technology companies we can have lots of power to do lots of different things, but please take a seat in here. But I'm also very proud to announce the next companies who are local to Tartu local tech companies whose services you have actually been using, knowing or not. Next is ReachU and mapping and localization, generating 3D maps of Tartu and measuring the events. Please, Kaspar Anton.
Thank you. Definitely glad to be here at the biggest startup event in Tartu and talking about another big event, Metallica. As I was recalled by being part of ReachU, I'm actually, I would say, entrepreneur, and I'm leading a startup. So my story is a startup story. But before I go there, I want to get you on the same line. I've been living in the mapping sector for all my life. And when I talk mapping, people always ask, like, what? Mapping, it has been here for decades. What's innovation about that? What are you talking about? It's because the change is happening in the mapping sector. When I talk about mapping, I don't talk about navigational data that is 2D maps. I talk about highly accuracy 3D environments, the vectorized data that is used for the autonomous vehicles. I don't talk about simple map layers. I talk about 3D datasets that actually include information so you can extract even small details, whatever you need. And when I talk mapping, I don't talk about orthophotos. I talk about the 3D city models that put together the 2D and the 3D worlds. So to understand also why this sector is moving and why the change is happening, you need to look at the key technologies that are currently on the market. And here in Estonia, autonomous vehicles and robots, well, I always love to go to Mustamäe, actually. It always reminds me that the future is already here, seeing these little bots running around. Or autonomous drones. Even here in Tartu, there is a startup called Skycorp who's developing hydrogen fuel cell drone that can stay up in the air for hours, soon maybe even days. Or augmented and virtual realities. Soon this will be part of our everyday life through glasses or lenses and mixing up like in the movie of Matrix. But now going back to the event, or quite soon, when I'm talking about startup, so every successful startup should have a founding story, and so do we. It started a long time ago with something with a G, 3G, 4G, 5G, no. Ah, yeah, it was TG, or as we refer to it, the god of mapping. Yeah, our story began with this god, and we were part of their team almost 6 years. But when the focus of theirs was lost in the regarding of Baltics, our small states, and also Estonia, after 2014, this god took away our toys, our power toys. And it was right after that when my entrepreneur soul kicked out, and we decided with our team that was operating by that time with the god, that we will make something happen ourselves. And actually we have. We have developed, I would say, more advanced technology that we were using by that time, that we were looking like, wow, what was that? But now we are, I would say, a step ahead. We have done a lot during these 4 or 5 years. We have covered the full Estonia actually in 3D map, and the local companies and governments are using it daily. We are working together with the autonomous vehicles, especially in Taltech, the Auertech, and soon hopefully also Bolt in Tartu. And yes, currently we are open for the next round of funding to scale up, and there is still room, so yeah. But coming back to the event, since at this Metallica event, no robots or drones were flying yet. Hopefully the next one it will be already. So we concentrated on something that the issue that is all existing also in all the major cities, parking. So what we did, we drove through the main area of Radi 3 times in the morning, during the event, and the next day. And we had 2 teams in Tartu University who were analyzing the results. One was doing the manual work, and another one was actually doing AI-based feature extraction. So yeah, as expected, almost a half of the Tartu became a big parking lot. Like normal parking in the streets, but also wherever actually was possible. Even in people's gardens was opened up for parking. So what did we get out from the data? There was around 5,000 cars actually parked in the Radi area, and it didn't include the closed parking slot itself, only on the streets in Radi Kruusamäe. We detected almost 500 cars who actually were illegally parked. And yeah, they all got a ticket with our bank account number. Talk about crowdfunding a new way, yeah? We should do it more often, and maybe in the bigger cities. And since we are not allowed to go into break the privacy rules, the next part is hypothetical. We also detected how many people were drunk. Only 7? Yeah, that's because actually the equipment broke down. But we did detect 1,723 girls with a beautiful smile. And combining now their social media account and the info that we get from the web, the AI actually can say that 1,699 would go out with the date with me. Yeah, I know what's up with this 24. I need to check the algorithm. But thank you, this was my startup story, and thank you.
Thank you. Please hand it over to our next speaker who will be on the stage. You know that data analysis starts from you need to get the data, you need to have the sensors, etc. And the most ubiquitous sensor that you have all purchased yourself and you're carrying with you is mobile phones. So Positium Erkki Saluveer will talk about analyzing this demographic data from the mobile phones. Please.
Hello, everyone. So I give in my 2 cents as well. So my name is Erkki Saluveer. I come from a company called Positium. We are a university spin-off company from Tartu, from University of Tartu. And I will give you some of the overview of how we analyzed Metallica concert. So, but first, why we use this new kind of technology called mobile positioning data. And I can go back in time. So this picture you see on the screen is from Tallinn-Tartu main road. And as people familiar with Estonia might recognize from the bus, it's quite old. So it was over 10 years ago when there was a plan to widen the road between Kose and Mäo. So this is a section now being built. And there was a question whether it should be done or not, and how to answer that question. So you need to kind of know the people on the road, how many there are, from where they come, in order to understand whether the cost efficiency of investing into the road building is doable. So, and this is how it was done in 2008. So the cars were stopped on the highway and people were asked, where do you come from and where do you go to? Just 2 questions. And that's it. And people were let go. So luckily, this is something that doesn't need to be done anymore in this old-fashioned manner, because there is a new kind of method. So how to measure a crowd? And Jaak already gave the intro. So as well, on the Metallica concert, as you can see on the picture, everybody has a mobile phone now. And they are voluntarily charging it as well. They are carrying it always with them. So if we want to measure the crowd, the people behavior in time and space, the best sensor that is out there is mobile phone. When the previous presenters talked about that in order to collect the data, they need to do infrastructure investments to set up the cameras or drive around, then the infrastructure for sensing the crowd through mobile phones is already there. So it's already existent. So this is what my company is doing. We are a data analytics company building statistics out of mobile positioning data. And the data itself is very simple that is possible to get from the mobile operators. So it has just this pseudonymized device ID. It has some time parameter and location parameter. Location is through the antenna. To apply there on that data some algorithms and techniques, you can derive statistics out of it. As you can see on the picture here, there is a map of Estonia one day, all mobile phones in Estonia. So this is interpolated data into a map. And as people familiar with Estonia can recognize, you can see the cities, you can see the suburbs, so it kind of makes sense. The data seems to be quite accurate. So I already feel that some people might have the question, isn't that the kind of tracking people? In our sense, obviously the answer is no. We consider the data as footsteps in the snow. So you can see on that picture that there is footsteps, so somebody has been walking. We can see where that person has been walking, but we do not know anything about that person. If you have millions of that kind of footpaths, in order to aggregate them into statistics, that's very doable, as you all know. And this is not intriguing, the kind of personal data. But okay, let's go to the statistics that we generate. So you have a question, who is this crowd on that Metallica concert? And on analyzing the footpath, we can actually, in the longer time period, we can derive these groups into different, we can put the people into different groups. So for example, we can say that people are from Tartu, so these are the residents. Some people are students in city, so they are temporary residents, because some of the time they are outside of Tartu. Some people are not living in Tartu, so they are only working here. Some people are domestic tourists, so they came from Tallinn, for example. Some people are foreign tourists as well. You can derive the data from the mobile network operators. Or some people are just passing by, so they are not staying on the concert. So we analyzed all that data, and we came with some of the statistics here. So for example, as already showed, so most of the visitors came from neighboring countries. What's interesting here, maybe you can see that many people came from Russia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Not so many came from Finland, what we kind of would expect otherwise. But it's because 2 days before there was a concert in Hämeenlinna, so the Metallica was there. If you look on the world's map, obviously you can see only the neighboring countries and European countries are present, and Asia, Africa, Latin America have no visitors at all. But we can also see how they came over time, so what kind of other places they visited on different days. So here is an animation of municipalities that foreign visitors were on different days. And obviously, again, we can see that people from the south, from Latvia, came through the southern municipalities, and some people came through the Tallinn because that's the main port. But what's interesting about that concert is that most people stayed very short time here. So especially the largest visitor numbers from Latvia, Lithuania, and Russia, they stayed just over 1 day. So basically, they only came for the concert and then left straight away. So the only one that stayed longer and made a bigger economic impact were from Scandinavia, so Finland, Sweden, Norway. Another interesting insight. And of course, we can see also the local residents. So where did they come from? And this is obviously what expected from Tallinn, Tartu, and Pärnu area, not so many people from northeast. And so that's very quickly about mobile positioning data. I leave you here with an animation of what would have happened if the people would have left at the same time from Tartu, and that would have looked on the Estonian roads, the movement back home. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Was this on? Yes. As you can see, data sciences are not only machine learning models or visualizations. You need to have all the stories. You need to get the big picture. And I'm very proud that the Estonian Enterprise Estonia has hired somebody to put together the big picture with the international background. She has had previous work on the global level. Please, Pia Põldsaar.
Hi everyone. So I'm the lucky one who is invited along with these guys to help put together the big picture and bind it into structure of models. So I'm just going to put some data up here while we're starting this. So a bit about my background as well. I have a track record in making quite complex situations in life a lot simpler and building models out of them. And then we usually have a tendency to make them really complex again. And this is one of those cases where we have a lot of data on my background. I have a data set, which is actually just one of the files that we're looking at over this whole course of analytics. And this is bus delays and validations in Tartu just during 1 day. And keep in mind how long this will scroll on for. And it's not here to cause anxiety or give epileptic episodes, but it's just to give you a bit of backstage into the story as well. So since we started this modeling process about 2 months ago, I also invited into my team a data scientist who specializes in mobile positioning data in particular, and also a creative who brings together the other side of the story, and he's focusing on data visualization. So together we're actually finding quite a cool way to innovate and find different and new angles to these situations as well. And about the data, so we have a lot of data, as was already mentioned in the video as well. We have some initial results from there, and currently we are in the feasibility stage, which means that we have come up with model structures. We can confirm that we can do it, it's doable, and it's work in progress. We are getting closer and closer to the answers day by day, which is really, really exciting and completely new for me as well in the field. And to talk about the data, bus and mobility is just one of the fields that we're covering. We also have mobility within the town with the mobile positioning data. We were looking at the environment, as mentioned, CO2, NO2, things like earth moving, trash bins used on the site as well, and recycling, because we want to make sure that the city stays intact and there's no environmental impact. Then another field that we're looking at, they're basically the Tartu Smart City 6 pillars. The third one, and it's starting to draw up here as connections as well. We are looking at economy, and impact on economy as well. So that's mainly represented at the moment by accommodation and Airbnb stays. So as was also demonstrated in the video, it hiked up quite a bit, and we saw an increase in volume, but also in the price levels. And there's 3 other pillars that I won't touch a lot on at this stage, but in the end of my presentation, I can try and bring them a bit more together. So there's also living, people, and governance. And I will touch on that when we go into the model part as well. So while I've been speaking, we're starting to see some dots emerging on the screen. And these are the connections that we're making with the smart bike system, which is the electrical bikes that Tartu has around. So that was also one of the ways to get around traffic jams and congestion in that. So we're looking at it over 2-year period on the screen, and a 2-day period, apologies. And we can see quite the clear comparison between the days as well, drawing up. Now, the challenge we have is to find value in every single one of those pillars, and that's what we're aiming to do at the moment. As I said, we have confirmed that we can find a KPI for each of these pillars and build a model that includes all of this data into one system. And that's where it becomes really interesting, where we start to get the